Yeah, two-part question, Ramona, based on what you just said.
Yeah.
Has that changed? Is it more appealing to be here now? Because I know at the end of the Carmelo era, the players were looking at it
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be the savior. I don't want to have to, take every sling when we lose. And,
Yeah.
Obviously the flip side is you're a hero when you win, but it was a tough position. Do you think that has changed now? And then I'll ask my follow-up.
I think it's changed in that we really don't hear all that much about Knicks dysfunction. Ever since Leon took over, I haven't heard that much about Knicks dysfunction. He's run a pretty clean, tight ship here. But I'll tell you, I'm going to give you the same answer that we used to talk about in LA. They would always ask Kobe, like, how come you don't recruit free agents? Like he famously went to the Dwight Howard meeting and was like, oh, why am I here? I shouldn't have to sell this guy. I'm playing for the freaking Lakers, I mean, and the truth, and Kobe would always say this, and I think it applies to the Knicks as well. The person who is going to take the torch, who wants to take the torch from me, I don't need to pitch. They already see the benefit of it. They already see how great it would be to be the star of the Los Angeles Lakers. And I'll say this. I think there's a lot of stars out there, a lot of players right now, talk about the Knicks, that have a really positive idea of like what it would be like to be the star of the Knicks. Like this idea of like how great it would be for this to work out there. And that's saying something. Like that's now there's a lot who don't want to touch it. There's a lot who are afraid of it. But that's not who you want.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're
Right.
afraid of being the star on the Knicks or playing in New York, it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's sort of self-selecting. So I think when it comes down to it, Leon is a good enough agent to know which players have the right mindset, the right makeup to come into a situation like this and succeed. I think you got to be mentally tough. You got to really understand how to handle all that kind of pressure, and but you also got to want there's certain players that want the cheer of the garden, that love it, and you know who they are. I mean, you see them out twice a year, right?
Yeah.
You see them come through the garden. Like you can tell who gets up to play in the garden, who would thrive there, and who doesn't. And so they're in really good position to go get somebody this year, next year, whenever that opportunity presents itself.
I know you have to jump off, Ramona. I got one last one, if I
Sure.
may. How much do you think teams around the league, and how much are you paying attention to Philadelphia and what happens in the postseason with the Sixers and obviously James Harden's impending free agency? What do you see there?
I think that is there's a couple franchises that have so much pressure on them this year because of the stakes, because of how much money they're spending, how much money they might have to spend. I would say the Sixers, Minnesota's got a lot out there. Guy punched the wall yesterday. He's due for a big deal. Jaden McDaniels, right? But Philadelphia, I mean, it's felt tense there for years. And so the question is like, at some point, like when have you seen enough from this group to say, okay, it's either going to work or not work? Are we still one transaction cycle away? Dallas is another. I think Dallas is one transaction cycle away, one or two. Like they made the big midseason trade, but they don't have the supporting cast. And so you saw their depth get exposed. They can't play defense. They just need a lot more. But with Philadelphia, like they've had a couple transaction cycles now. Like they had the James Harden trade last year. So they've had free agency last year. They had the trade deadline cycle. They've had, and then we'll see what they do right now. I never am in a position where I say, okay, if they lose, they blow it all up. I don't feel like we're there yet with them. I feel like they have maybe another transaction cycle to go. But some of the financial realities force decisions. And so James has a decision to make, right? Does he want to stay there and roll with this team? When you talk to him in person, he says all the right things. Like, I'm here to win. He's actually done a lot of the right things. Like, he's leading the league in assists, by the way.
Yeah.
We talk about, the best play in basketball, the most efficient offensive play in basketball is the Harden and Embiid pick and roll. And every time I watch footage of it, I go, they're not really rolling. It's like a pick and pop. It's not like James throwing the ball and lobs to Clint Capella, but it's still a hell of an efficient play. So there's this feeling like it's not a perfect fit, but it still fits pretty well. And let's see what happens. If they go out in round 2 again, I think they have to look in the mirror and say, okay, what are we doing here? Is this going to work long term? Do we need some more tweaks at the margin? Can we make some tweaks at the margins, or is it time to just redo things? So I think I'm watching that very carefully and closely, just because some of the financial decisions that have to be made, especially with Harden and and Tyrese Maxey, due for an extension, are going to necessitate that. But I still think they have a little runway here.